Recording. Hey everybody, Dan Kroll again here for the podcast. This is episode 22, kind of a special one today. We're doing a high school playoff edition of the podcast. Last night or yesterday afternoon, I did one with Ann Hagen at the field from Sanger Field. It already has like 140 some views, so a lot of people are enjoying that. Hope people enjoy this one as well. Today though, as you can see, the voices, you gotta actually get to see their faces for once. Jay Hiscocks and Kevin Wilson. So thanks for coming on and doing this playoff episode, guys.
Thanks for having us, Dan.
You bet.
That should be fun. We're going to get through all our sponsors today. I did a condensed version with Ann yesterday, so I want to make sure I give those businesses their time. I have 8 of them for today. I have Ewing Funeral Home and Monument Company, Mary Jo's Hobo House and Catering, Jay Hiscocks of State Farm Insurance, Deemer Realty, Britt Vet Clinic. I also have a lady, like I've had in the last few episodes, from my church who wrote a book, Jan Rozga, White Barn Picket Fence, and then First State Bank. So I'm going to get to Jan Rozga first. She wrote a book called Raw Survival, A Practical Guide to Living Through Loss. A week after graduating from high school, her 18-year-old son David smoked a synthetic drug called K2, and he took his life 90 minutes later. Jan recently had this book published about her grief journey. It's called Raw Survival. If your life has been shattered by the death of a loved one, no matter how recent, you'll find comfort and encouragement in her book. I'll have links posted to where you can purchase her book, and then another video that we made to further go into detail about her book. Reminder about the Sanger Legacy Fund, as always. Make sure you go to sangerstrong.com to donate if you haven't already. Thanks to Al DeWard for making that site a great site to use. Let's do the 5, 10, 15, and 20 episodes ago segment quick. 5 episodes ago on episode 17, I talked with the 1996 state championship football team. Hopefully some years from now, we'll be doing one for this year's team. 10 episodes ago on episode 12, I talked with Nate Schreur, my most watched podcast so far. 15 episodes ago on episode 7, I talked to Rick Sanger. Saw him in the press box last night. And then 20 episodes ago on episode 2, I talked to Steve Everett II, the son of the former head coach, Steve Everett. I'll have those links posted as well, so check those out as well. All right, let's get it started, guys, real quick. I'm sure a lot of people are going to know who you are, but let's just do introductions so people know who you are. Kevin, we'll start with you.
All right, thank you. I'm Kevin Wilson. Job brought me to Britt 31 years ago and raised my family here. I grew up in Grundy Center, raised my family here in Britt, been involved in the school in some way almost every year since then. I started out as a fan, of course, and then I became a PA announcer for softball, baseball, and track. I still do track, and I filled in for the legendary Denny Brum on football games, and that's how I got into the radio stuff. Just recently retired from coaching boys, or started out coaching boys basketball, coached that for a year when Robin Drake was here, and then moved over to the girls side. Been there for the last 14 years as an assistant, did 3 years as a head coach before Coach Sonius came along. And but the reason we're talking right now is in 2013, I became the play-by-play announcer for West Hancock football.
And what'd you say, if we go to the championship game, that'll be your 100th game broadcasting?
Yeah, that'll be my 100th game, West Hancock football game, if we can make it to the championship game this year.
Yep. Nice.
Who'd have thought?
Yep. Jay?
I say let's go for it with that 100th broadcast this year. That'd be nice. So I moved back to Britt in 2010 with my wife, Bonnie. Bonnie is a West Hancock grad, class of 2001. We moved back, and then I took over as a State Farm agent in January of 2016 after the passing of Jim Becker, who was the color guy with Kevin when they originally started the radio broadcast before they got into the live stream. And then unfortunately, after Jim passed away, Kevin reached out to me, and we've been doing that ever since. Try to stay as involved as I can in the community with my agency, and stayed involved with the school in a number of different projects. And my second year back in Britt, I started helping out with the basketball team with Coach P. I believe that was 2011, I want to say, or 2012 season. And then had one brief year stint as the head golf coach. I think that was 5 years ago now. They were needing someone desperately, so I just happened to be there to do that. So that was a one and done, probably for the best for all parties, because I'm not much of a golfer. But I could get the kids to the course safely, and that's really all I needed to do at that point. And then last year, I took over as the head basketball coach at West Hancock. That was my first year as the head coach. So got through that first year with all the first year head coach growing pains, and it being a COVID season, and really looking forward to this season. And like I tell the guys and the parents, I've got a text chain with our basketball team, and I think 95% of them play on the football team. And I just keep telling them, hey, I hope we have a late start to the basketball season, because that means we're playing for a state championship.
Exactly. Yep. I think basketball coaches in Britt have been used to that for decades now. So
it's a good problem to have.
Exactly. So
for the girls, though.
Yeah, well, they don't play football, but still.
I know. I just thought I'd throw that out.
Yeah. All right. So, like I said, this podcast is going to be all about playoff football. So we're going to break down the pairings that just came out about 45 minutes ago. We're going to talk about historical information and just have a good, fun conversation about hopefully the next 5 weeks, and gets to Kevin's 100th game of broadcasting. So the regular season just wrapped up last night for Class A, and then also A-Man, 1A, 2A. They did a little different this year. 3A, 4A, and 5A have a 9th regular season game, and then they have a little different playoff qualifier. But for Class A specifically for us, where West Hancock is, there's 32 teams that made the postseason starting this year. There was 32 qualifiers from 2008 to 2015, and then in 2016 they went back to 16, and then last year was ridiculous. It was everyone got in, but you had to win 2 games to technically be a playoff qualifier. And then this year they went back to officially 32 that's the playoffs. If you're in that top 32, you are a playoff qualifier. But let's get to last night's game real quick. It was supposed to be a big matchup. 7-0 versus 7-0 for the district title against North Butler at Britt. These guys were nice enough to let me be in the press box because it was cold and I'm old and a wimp anymore. So I attempted to do some stats for him and move the camera around every once in a while. But we won the game 36-0. It was 6-0 at the end of the first quarter. We thought it was going to be 6-0 at halftime. Then Matthew Francis ripped off an 80-yard run. Then we scored a few plays later to make it 12-0. Got the ball back in the second half, put up 2 scores in each of the last 2 quarters. Matthew Francis officially finished with 175 yards, 2 scores. Braden Walk had 2 scores in the fourth quarter. Kane Zool had a receiving touchdown, a rushing touchdown. Our quarterback, 6 for 8 passing, 81 yards. Ryland Barnes had 16 tackles. John Martinez had a fumble recovery. Kane Zool and Red Eisenman each had a pick. We held North Butler. I haven't seen their stats yet, but what did we calculate? Like just under 60 yards or something?
I want to say under 70 yards of total offense. So
yeah. So they
those little come out when they put their stats on Varsity Bound. They weren't on there this morning, were they? When I looked earlier.
No, they weren't. They're supposed to, I think, by noon before the playoffs. They have to have that updated. But what did you guys think of last night's game?
Go for it, Kevin.
Well, I thought it was a great game. I thought we played. I think the difference in the game was what Jay said before the game. West Hancock, that team has been in those kind of games before, big games. It was, the 2 teams statistically coming into that game were so evenly matched. We thought maybe the difference would be the experience in the postseason that would make a difference in that game. And I think it did. Kane set the tone early, I think, for West Hancock when he got that pick. Great play. And then we were able to, we talked on Thursday when Jay and I had lunch, that a team like that, if you can keep the other team from having a short field and putting points on the board in a short field. And that was one of the things that we did well right at the start of the game and set the tone. And I think that's one of the things West Hancock football has thrived on, is those big games at the end of the season. We've seen over the course of my 30-some years at watching West Hancock football, we've had some big games come down to the end of the season, and where 2 teams have come in and undefeated or playing for a district championship. And we've done a great job of just being focused and putting people away. Mm-hmm. And what should have been a close game turned out to not be.
Yeah, I think, at halftime it was 12-0, close game. And like you said, we talked about that big game experience. And one thing that I'll say, how that big game experience develops, a lot of these kids, obviously Kane Zool, Braden Walk, Matthew Francis, they were big parts of that championship team. So they have that big game experience going all the way back to their sophomore year. But when you have a tradition like West Hancock, even all those kids that are on the sideline, that, you know, as freshmen or sophomores that may not be playing in a ton, they're still in that atmosphere and they see how kids react. They get a sense for how one game might be bigger than the other. So they're not surprised because they've been on the sideline. They've kind of been through the dress rehearsal of it. And that's how success breeds success and tradition. You know, a lot of teams, they say instead of, you know, when they graduate, they reload instead of rebuild. That's how you reload instead of rebuild. And the other thing that comes with that is when you're constantly making playoff appearances, you're getting 2, 3, 4, 5 extra weeks of preparation. And those sophomores and freshmen are kind of getting the brunt of it, being on scout team, things like that. But that's developing your program so that when big games come up, kids that may not have that in-game experience, they've been there, they've seen it, so that it's not too big of a moment for them. And I think, like Kevin said, we talked about it last night, and we talked about it earlier in the week. That's kind of what set the tone in the second half and kind of let us stretch out that lead. And the other thing too, and this happens with West Hancock football naturally, is just the physicality of how we play at the line of scrimmage eventually wears on a team. I mean, you think about the first half, North Butler, they were giving us some fits. Their defense was giving us some fits with what they were doing, stopping our run game. And, you know, they've got some really nice players. Chet Buss is a great athlete, but they were giving us some fits. But I think eventually that overall physicality that we play with, just eventually wore them out, and that allowed us to stretch the lead from 12-0, and then all of a sudden we had a running clock. Was it right away in the fourth quarter? 8 minutes
left in the game. Yep.
Yeah. So big win, but credit to North Butler. One heck of a story that they've been this year to have 7 straight wins, when most people that we think we know a lot about high school football. None of us had North Butler finishing in the top 4 of our district, let alone being 7-0 coming into week 8.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, so we're 5-0 all time against North Butler now. We've outscored them 214-24 in those 5 games. Get a little scoregami, my nerdiness coming out. It's only the second time in school history we won a game by exactly the score of 36-0. The only other time that happened was 2014 against North Butler. So both those games were against them. And it was our 9th 36-point win in school history. We're currently on a 16-game regular season win streak, which is 4th all time in school history. And this was our 20th straight district win, the 3rd longest streak in school history. We're coming up on just a handful more wins to get to that top of that record board. We finished the regular season 8-0. Again, there's only 8 games this year instead of 9. We have had unbeaten regular seasons in 1940, 48, 60, 62, and now into the Sanger era, 73, 86, 87, 91, 93, 95, 96, 2003, 2006, 2019, and now 2021. So that was our 15th unbeaten regular season in school history. So, all right, I'm going to read one ad, and then Jay gets to read his own, if that's all right with you.
I don't have it printed out, but I think I can make it up on the fly.
Okay, well, you make it up. I'll start with White Barn Picket Fence, Amanda Crumweed. White Barn Picket Fence has been specializing in newborn and children's photography for the past 13 years in northern Iowa. An expansion into farmhouse decor and gifts began 3 years ago with their first location in downtown Algona, and now their second location in downtown Clear Lake. With 2 locations to best serve their customers, White Barn Picket Fence brings the best of modern farmhouse style and unique gifts to the North Iowa area. You can also shop online at whitebarnpicketfence.com. Mr. State Farm.
I will give a plug for Amanda. I'm thinking my wife's walking around here. We probably got some products that my wife has bought at Amanda's store around the house. She's got a couple of really awesome stores, and we had some family pictures taken by her over Memorial Day weekend. She does a great job, and she's got one heck of a business. And as far as the State Farm stuff, I just want to say thank you to all of our customers, anybody that helps support us, and we're locally owned. And if you want to quote or want us to take a look at your stuff, we'll gladly do it. Give Lindsay or I a call, and we'll take a look and see if we can save you money and get you some really good coverage. But thank you to all of our customers. We're lucky in Britt, being in a small town, that we've got a lot of really great locally owned businesses. So all I ask is for people, if you can shop, whether it be groceries, clothes, hardware, insurance, banking, and you can do it locally, do it locally. At least give those businesses an opportunity to earn your business. So that's my plan.
And saws too, right? If you need to buy a saw,
And
buy
sauce,
one.
yes,
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go.
sauce.
You bet.
Yep. So a couple more things about just what last night gave us in terms of historically, and then we'll get into the brackets and stuff. Last night was our third shutout of the season, the 111th shutout of the Sanger era from 1968 to present day. This was the 8th shutout of Mark Sanger's head coaching career. Mark's been the head coach for 32 games, and his defense has held opponents to single digits or a shutout 18 of those 32 games. And I did some digging this morning. The 1998 team only gave up double digits in a game once. Same with the 1991 team and the 1986 team. And then the 1960, 1940, and 1926 teams never gave up double digits in a game. So we did that last night for the first time in 61 years. So we can add the 2021 team to that list. I thought that was kind of a fun stat.
Mm-hmm.
You guys know me, I like to dig and find the obscure. So
You like stats, Dan?
a little bit. I every once in a while I'll do some researching. So
I tell you what, it's a special defense this year.
yep, it's gonna be fun to watch them get into the playoffs and see what they do against those teams. And then we won the district title last night. It was our 30th conference or district title in school history, the third straight for Coach Mark Sanger. This is the 5th time that we've won at least 3 straight. Mark enters the postseason now with a 30-2 overall record. That's 93.75% win percentage. Mark's never lost a district game. He's 12-0 on the road. He has a 5-1 playoff record. Obviously, 2019, him and co-coach Bob Sanger won the state title. They defeated IKM Manning in the first round, South O'Brien in the quarters. In the Dome, we beat Woodbury Central 49-20, and then in the title game, we beat Grundy Center 21-17. Last year, he beat HMS at home in the first round. Then we lost that game to Grundy in the quarters 20-14. Overall in school history, we have a first round record of 25-6. So I think that bodes well for us come next Friday, record wise. Second round, we're 2-1. Quarterfinals were 12-11. In the semifinals, we're 6-6, and in the finals, we're 3-4 for an overall playoff record of 48-28. So it's going to be fun. Hopefully, we get to win number 50 this year in the playoffs. In going by decades, in the 70s, we're 2-0. 80s, we were 10-5. The 90s, we were 13-8. The 2000s, we were 7-6. In the 2010 decade, we were 15-8, and so far this decade, we're 1-1. In the first round of the playoffs, we've scored 861 points and given up 442. 29 teams have won 3 or more state titles, and that includes Britt, West Hancock. We've been in 7 state championship games. Only 19 teams have been in that many or more. This is our 32nd playoff appearance. I didn't look up this one, but I think that's like top 7 or 8 in terms of playoff appearances in state history. Other teams that have that many or more. All right, let's get to the Class A pairings here. I'm going to try to share my screen. I've done enough of these podcasts, but I'm still not a professional at this, so give me a second.
Hey, we say that every Friday night.
Oh, that's 2A. Hold on. Again, I'm not a pro, but what'd you guys think while I'm trying to not make a total fool of myself? What'd you think about the pairings that came out this morning?
Kevin and I we kind of started talking 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I'll give Kevin credit. He nailed 31 of 32 qualifiers in his prediction. And to brag a little bit on myself, I said Alta about 3 weeks ago is who I thought we would get, and not surprised. And I thought we'd go west, and talking with Mark a little bit too, and Coach Eisenman, they were all thinking Alta more than likely. So not surprised by that. We'll be interested to see who, if we were to win, who we would match up with or who we would get quadded with. And I'm sure you'll talk about what they're going to do moving forward. But yeah, I'm just glad it's a team we haven't seen this year, and more thankful that we're going to be at home.
Yeah, no kidding. So here's, if you looking on the screen here, here's the first round matchups. And again, they're only giving out the first round matchups. After all these teams win next Friday, they're going to redo the bracket, make 4 14 pods based on who's left And it's impossible to know exactly what the state's always thinking. Are they going to do it by geography? Are they going to do it by rankings? We don't know. But for now, all we know is that here's the first round pairings. So we're going to go through and give our predictions for the first round that we know of here for Class A, and then some of the other classes. So Kevin, do you want to start it off? Who do you have winning here in the first round?
Well, just going through the fours and at the ones, that very first game, that's going to be Jay and I talked about a little bit last night about Tri-Center Neola. They're going to be a tough out, and I think
They're a dangerous team.
yeah. In the end, though, I think Hartley Melvin, just because they're at home, I think they prevail in that one. But I do think that there's a potential upset there, and it could be a very close game. Looking on to our game, we're familiar with Alta. They were in our district last year. I think that we'll be okay in that game going forward. To St. Ansgar Grundy Center, this was one of the games that I picked the first round. I thought maybe St. Ansgar would head to Grundy Center, and St. Ansgar, if they are able to control the ball like they did against us in the first quarter, they could make that a close game. They're going to have to stay ahead of the chains and try to contain the passing game and keep Kanawha under control in that one. But in the end, I think Grundy Center probably prevails there. Nashua Plainfield at Northland. Northland, their defense has just been ridiculously good this year as far as giving up points. And went through the other day and looked at their yardage that they've been giving up, and it's very similar to ours. They've given up, in fact, I think they might even be a little bit better than we are. I think their defense wins championships, and I think they win that one fairly easy. Bellevue at Lisbon. Bellevue has been kind of an anomaly. They started the season ranked, and they dropped out of the rankings and fought to get themselves back up in the district. Lisbon, traditional playoff team. I think Lisbon prevails there. Highland Riverside and Linville Sully, don't know much about either one of those two teams other than Linville Sully's got some history. I would go with them on that one. And then Madrid and Mount Ayr. Mount Ayr won a big game last night versus, I always get this mixed up. It's Southeast Valley, correct?
Valley.
Southwest, okay.
Yeah.
And so I think they Mount Ayr wins that one. And then AHSTW was the team that I missed getting into the playoffs. They have to travel over to Woodbury Central. And Jay can tell you, we both have talked a lot about Woodbury Central during the course of the season. I think Woodbury wins that one fairly easily too.
Jay, do you have any different outcomes in the 4-versus-1 games?
4-versus-1, I got all the home teams. I'll echo Kevin's statement about Tri-Center Neola. Very good team. They knocked off Woodbury Central in week 7. One of their only other losses was to Underwood, who's a 1A top 2 team. And then I can't remember who their other 2 losses were. They had one bad loss. They lost to ICAM. They probably shouldn't have, and I don't know what the story was behind that. But HMS is a very good team. Obviously, their only 2 losses are to West Sioux and to us. So they've lost to 2 of the best teams in the state. So that'll be an interesting game. I think HMS will prevail in that one. But Tri-Center going into these pairings, that was the one team, knowing that they finished 4th, the one team I wanted to see, like, okay, who are they going to match up with? Because out of all these district champs, knowing who they're all going to play a number 4 team, they were probably the team that every district champ didn't want to see. And HMS, unfortunate for them, they got them. They're a good team, but I think HMS prevails in that. Other than that, I've got all the home teams moving on, and yeah, should be some good games. But that Tri-Center and HMS game, that's the one to watch.
And what do you have, Jay, for the 3s versus the 2s down here? Do you want to do your breakdown? Then we'll ask Kevin what he thinks.
I've got South O'Brien moving past IKM, North Butler. Obviously, we saw them last night. I think they've got a terrific defensive line, very physical. Both lines of scrimmage, I think they move on from Starmont. Wapsie Valley, I've got them winning and moving on over Alburnett. And then I come in with a few upsets. I've got Newman Catholic, or I got a few road teams, I should say. I got Newman Catholic moving on over East Buchanan. I just think they're a unique matchup for teams that haven't seen them. Max Burt and company, they've got a lot of skill players. that surround Max Bird at the quarterback position. Got a couple of good running backs, and they can put it in the air. So I think they're a dangerous team for East Buchanan. So I'm going to go with Newman Catholic. I'm also going to go with North Tama over Wapello. Quarterback, what's his name, Kevin? Capriva?
Gabe Capriva.
Capriva has put up some huge numbers this year. They lost game last week or the week before last where they had a few guys out due to different circumstances. And then obviously they were shut out last night by a really good Grundy Center team. But I think North Tama's got too much offense for Wapello, and they move on. And then my other road team moving on is Earlham over Belle Plaine. Earlham's got a good history of running the football, and I'm just decided to go with Earlham over Belle Plaine. And then I went with Southwest Valley and Logan Magnolia. Logan Magnolia has been really impressive this year, especially late in the season. I think they're one of those 2 seeds that could be very dangerous to make a run to the Dome.
Yeah, before we get to Kevin, I had the exact same bracket as you except for Earlham. I almost picked them, but then I was like, I already have 2 kind of road upset teams. I was a little leery of picking 3, but they would have been my 3rd team as well. So how about you, Kevin? Any differences in what Jay said?
I would agree with everything he said, except for maybe 2 games. I picked IKM over South O'Brien just because in fact, this morning I looked at their schedule and the teams that they had lost to, and they're a bit of an anomaly, so you never know what you're going to get. But I think that they can, just looking at the statistics, I think they could upset South O'Brien. And then the North Tama and Wapello game, I picked Wapello just because, I don't know, it seems the last couple of weeks that North Tama hasn't been on their game. They've kind of lost their mojo. I picked Wapello just for that reason. He's right. Gabe Capri, excellent quarterback. And if he's on his game, I think Wapello's in trouble. But I picked Wapello in that one. I kind of think is an upset the other way.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
One thing interesting, I was reading an article about the Grundy Center and North Tama game last night. North Tama outgained Grundy Center in total yardage, matched them with first downs, but they just couldn't convert. I think they were like 0 for 6 on 4th downs or something like that. So they moved the ball a little bit. It just couldn't put it in the end zone. But yeah, Wapello is a really good team. If you look at their schedule and kind of their resume, that's probably my most interesting matchup as far as 3 versus 2. That's the one that kind of a coin flip. I'll be really interested and keep a close eye on that one.
Yep. Awesome. So yeah, we're pretty similar. For the most part, you're going to get 75% of these right in the first round, just based on a 3-5 team against an 8-0 team type of thing. But let's look at our opponent, Alta Aurelia. I just shared the screen, one of my documents that I use for all my stat stuff. We're 4-0 all time when it was just Alta. Kevin, you'll really remember these Alta games.
Yes.
When Brady played. There were some doozies.
Yes, there were
2 non-district games, and we had a first round matchup with them in the playoffs, and they were good, close games, especially 07. And then we've only played Alta Aurelia once, and that was last year on my birthday. We beat them 54-26 on the road, and if I remember correctly, that was the Cole Kelly 7-touchdown game where he set the school record for most touchdowns in a game. So that's our history with Alta Aurelia. Their coach is Chris Reinhardt, and this is his 7th year as head coach. He was the co-coach for like 4 years, I believe, with a guy with a really long last name I didn't even bother to pretend to know how to pronounce. 2015 to current, he went 2-7, 5-4, 3-6, 7-3. They made the first round of the playoffs that year. 5-4, 5-3 last year, and then 5-3 so far this year for a combined record of 32-30. Let me get my screen shared here quick. I'm going to show you guys and everyone out there their current season, who they've all played. What do you guys think about who they've played and what you think is going to happen? We know we all picked Britt to win, but what do you guys think in terms of the game itself? Obviously,
a couple common opponents there. I do want to say one thing. So the Alta game last year, this is the story I wanted to tell, Dan. Cole Kelly, is known as the Cole Kelly game. I'll remember it as the Kevin Wilson game. I think it was Cole when he ripped off one of those touchdowns, and Kevin Wilson got excited, stood up, went to sit back down. Well, he had kicked his chair out from under him, and he made the touchdown call in the turtle formation as he was down on his back, all four limbs hanging in the air, and I about lost it on the air. It was probably the games all kind of mixed together as you call these, but I'll never forget that moment with Kevin laying on the ground. I kind of just lost it. I had to take my headset off, and Kevin, the ultimate professional, just got back up. He may have laughed a little bit too, but oh man, that was an all-timer. We've been really lucky to have a lot of great moments in the booth as far as like what we're watching on the field, but that was a fun one, Kevin. And sorry to laugh at your own expense, but I thank you for that memory.
Oh, it was fun. Yeah. And I'll remember it well.
How long were you sore after that?
I was just glad I didn't get hurt, because the floor was hard. Now, we were to elaborate a little bit about that. I had to stretch my neck to get to see the end zone from our position in the press box, and I was sitting on a chair that had wheels on it, and in order to get up higher, I was also sitting on the box that we keep some of our equipment in, and as I pushed the chair back out, the wheels come out from underneath me, so to speak, and I didn't miss a beat on the way to the floor calling the touchdown, but we had to compose ourselves quickly after the break because I don't know that we ever did recall the extra point attempt.
No, I think we had lost it by that point. We've had some fun memories though. There's a playoff game a couple of years ago. Were we at Hinton and the fire trucks went by? Kevin was gone, because he's a fire truck guy. Like Dan's a stat nerd. Kevin's a fire truck nerd. So fire trucks are going by, and Kevin, we had to reel him in to get him back to the action on the field, like kid. But we've had a lot of fun in the booth. So anyways, moving on to Alta. Yeah, a couple of common opponents here. Obviously, they lost big to Harle, Melvin, Sanborn, and then a nice win at North Union in week 7. But yeah, looking at some of their stats, they throw it around quite a bit. I believe their quarterback's thrown for nearly 1,500 yards through week 8. So that's impressive. That's a different look. I think that's actually a good thing for our team to see something like that. Hopefully we can move on from this, but it'll be just another, if we can move on, another thing our defense will have seen to possibly make a deep run in the playoffs. 1,200 yards, just over 1,200 yards. And
1,352 passing yards, just over 1,000 rushing yards. We're not going to go through all their defense. Good amount of fumble recovery, some interceptions on defense. No kick and punt, 1 punt return for a touchdown. Still something we haven't seen as a team, which is crazy, but pretty balanced offensively for the most part. Like I said, 1,352 passing, 1,000 rushing. Hard to know sometimes, are they passing out a necessity when they're down by a couple scores and just padding the stats, but still have the ability to do so. So that's always something to consider. So if you guys had to predict a score for the game right now, what would you predict?
Ooh, Kevin, I'll let you go first on that one.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I was just going to take a second and think while you were talking, but I'm going to say we're 2-3 touchdown favorites in this game. I'm going to go back to our defense, and we could very well record the shutout again because I really like our defense. I think our defense, we commented last night during the broadcast, this defense has given up 40 yards less per game than the state championship team defense that we had a couple of years ago. And I think Jay has touted it all season long. I think our secondary is probably the best secondary that we've seen in a while, even comparing them to, we've got some really good football teams, and this one ranks right up there with them just on the defensive end of things. Our offense has been steady as you go. It's not the flashy offense that we had in 2019 when we won the state championship, or even last year when we made our playoff run. But, the defense sets up the offense in positions where they don't need to be flashy. They don't have to have the big play, but yet they still get them. But this year, when I think about this team, the first thing I think about is the defense rather than the offense. And that old mantra of defense wins championships. And I really like our chances to go deep in the playoffs. So I think it's going to be difficult for someone to outscore us just because of our defense.
Yep. They're going to be lucky to get what they get. And Jay apparently got bored of your predictions, so I'll get
Sorry.
mine.
Dog was barking. I had to close the door. So
Same thing for me without giving specific numbers or anything currently, because it's hard to know on the day before or the day after the last game. But I'm going to agree with Kevin, like 3 to 4 touchdown favorite. Never know though, because I didn't think we'd put up more than 3 scores on North Butler as well, and we did that. So I'm going to say we're going to keep them under double digits scoring at least. So I'll go with that for my prediction.
So you guys asked for a prediction. You asked for a prediction, and neither one of you gave a prediction.
Okay.
Sure
34 nothing.
34-0. Kevin.
I'm going to go 32-0.
I'm going to go 42-6. I think they get a late touchdown. Like Kevin said, our defense is really obviously terrific. We've talked about it since probably week 4 or 5, championship level defense. And that back 7 defensive line has been terrific. And start the season, they were just kind of doing their job, taking up blocks. And we talked about it on our walk back to the vehicle last night. One guy's really started on that defensive line to come out and just starting to make plays from that defensive end position. That's David Smith. He's really come on here at the end of the season. He's been terrific from his DN position. But that back 7, those linebackers and secondary are terrific. The linebackers are all, you got 3 guys that are all 6'2", 6'3"-ish and can run like crazy, and Weiland and Mitchell and Matthew. And then you got Kane Zool, who's a hammer in his own right, probably one of the best pure tacklers that have ever gone through West Hancock. Just a terrific tackler. And then with Walk and Logan and Rhett back there, it's kind of a no-fly zone. It has been anyways against passing teams, and we'll really find out this week. I fully expect Alta to put it up in the air a little bit. And it will be nice having, obviously you get game film, Mark and company will get game film and put a scouting report together, but they've also seen a lot of these guys in last year's action. So I'm saying 42-6, West Hancock moves on. But I know I was listening to Mark on the radio here before we started the podcast with KOW. You can't get caught. We can look ahead because we're prognosticator, we're in the media or whatever, unofficial media, whatever you want to call us, but we can look ahead. But coaches, obviously their job is to keep the kids focused on one game at a time. If you just win the game that's in front of you each week and focus your attention onto them. And I think if they do that, they're more than capable of moving on to round 2.
Yep. And to me, it's getting better. Even fundamentals are still important at this time of the year. You get that extra week of practice. Keep working on those fundamentals. It's not all game planning. It's getting better. That's just going to help in the long run. So, all right, I'd like to thank another long-term sponsor. That's Renee Deemer and Deemer Realty, hometown hospitality and service with a smile. That's what Deemer Realty is all about. Helping buyers and sellers make a smooth transition when moving within or to the area is their priority. Serving north central Iowa since 1999, Deemer Realty has steadily grown over the years, establishing an outstanding record of sales in the North Iowa area that speaks to their dedication to every customer. That's Deemer Realty. Go to deemerrealty.net to check them out. Before we get to our next set of predictions, like I said, we're doing some historical stuff just for fun. It's first time doing this. The playoffs started in 1972. 4 teams made it in 4 classes, and we're currently at 32 teams, so it's changed a little bit over the last 50 years. There was just 1A, 2A, 3A, and 4A. The first ever state champions in that order were Radcliffe, Sioux Center, Harlan, and Cedar Rapids, Jefferson. Kinnick Stadium hosted the 3A and 4A games that year. 2A championship game was in Hampton, and the 1A championship was in Albert City, which if you've ever been to Albert City, it doesn't exactly scream championship host site, but it's a nice little town. Britt won the championship in 73, the second year in 2A. That game was at Kinnick Stadium. That's the game where we were late and almost had to forfeit the game. And then since then, Coach Sanger teams have been to the game 2.5 hours early. We beat Mount Vernon that game 34-13. The title game shifted to the Unidome in 1976. Obviously, 73 was the first of Coach Sanger's 3 titles. And that was the last time we made the playoffs until 1984. So what we're going to do next is we don't know what the second and quarters are round and quarters are going to look like. So we're going to pick our final 4 dome teams regardless of how the state pairs it by geography, by rankings, we're going to pick essentially who we think are the top 4 teams or the 4 teams we think are going to have the best shot of making the dome. So Jay, you want to go first?
Yes. 1 second. What class we starting with?
Let's start with A, and then we'll move on. 8-man, 1A, 2A. Yep.
Our final 4 teams.
Final 4. Yep.
So my final 4 teams, obviously we don't have a bracket. So I'm going to pick who I think the best 4 teams are. I think one of these teams, a couple of these teams might be matched up together. But my final 4 teams are West Hancock, obviously led by their defense, but just a team that plays really good complementary football and a terrific coaching staff, terrific players. I'm going to go West Hancock, Grundy Center, back-to-back runners-up. They still got Logan Kanak. I can't believe he's still eligible. It feels like he's been there for 9 years now. And they had, looking back at the roster when we played them in the championship, Dexter Whitehill, big-time receiver for him. He played big minutes in that championship game, so he's a senior along with Kanak, and they've really, Coach Zajac and company have really got them rolling. They've been terrific defensively as well, especially these last 6 weeks. I think they've only given up 10 points in the last 6 weeks. Yep. My third team I'm going to go with, Lisbon, 8-1 this year, but I really like them. Their one loss is to a good 2A team in West Branch, I believe. I'm going to go with Lisbon there. And then the other team, but I think they may get matched up in a quad, maybe with us, but I really like them. We've seen them already, is HMS. I think they're a really good football team. They gave us some issues. Obviously, 2 losses. Their 2 losses being to West Sioux in week 1 and to us a few weeks ago. But those are the 4 teams I really like. The other one that I'll just put a plug in for is Woodbury Central, dangerous offense. And one of those teams where if they get in the dome with what they like to do offensively, they can be really, really dangerous.
Yeah. I kind of asked these 2 guys, let's have fun, and because we're all going to pick West Hancock because 1, we're that good, and 2, we're homers. But if we called it last night, if we all got the poops and they couldn't play in the next game, had to forfeit, who would that other team that would replace us? So you would go with Woodbury Central with your.
Yeah, that Woodbury Central will be the other team, and they're a really nice offensive team. But it's pretty wide open. I think it's us and Grundy Center as the top 2, and then there's probably 4 or 5 teams that you could really make a case for after that.
Yep. I'll go next, and then we'll let Kevin round it out. I have us at West Hancock, Grundy Center, top 2. Those are my top 2. I have North Lynn and then Lisbon. And then if I had to go with that 5th team, if West Hancock all of a sudden couldn't participate, I went with Woodbury Central. But we've played them in the playoffs many times before the dome. So I could see that geography coming into play. They want to keep us and Grundy separated. If they care at all about the top 4 teams getting to the dome, I could see Woodbury Central having to come to Britt for a quarterfinal game, which I know they kind of hate us at this point because it's in the last 10 years we've beaten them 4 times in the playoffs, and prior to those last 10 years they had never made the playoffs. So they're like, if it wasn't for West Hancock, they probably would have some nicer, bigger trophies in their case. But Kevin, what do you think for your top 4 for Class A?
Well, I'm pretty much on the same page as you guys. I'm going to go, of course, West Hancock, Grundy Center. I'm going to go with North Lynn just because of their defense, and then Woodbury Central, unless they get matched up with us, of course. My 5th one would be Lisbon. I think they're going to. I don't know who will beat them, but they're going to run into somebody because Grundy Center, North Lynn are both close by, so it could be a North Lynn or Lisbon type of matchup getting into the semis. But those would be my 5 teams that I would pick to be in the Final 4.
Yep. And North Lynn would be the only team we've never played before in the playoffs. So it's kind of fun to always get new teams to get to play, and makes the nerd in me happy that I get to add some stuff to the spreadsheets and the documents. So
they've been a really nice story. North Lynn has this year, obviously with their defense. And Kevin and I talked about them a little bit earlier in the year. It's kind of we were waiting for North Lynn these last few years to make a run in football. They've made run. They have a terrific basketball program. They've had some terrific wrestlers go through there. Their baseball team's really good. So they've got the athletes. It was just a matter of having that success in the football field. And they're having it this year, definitely. It's just, to me, I just still have question marks of who they've played. So I want to see them in a really big game against a really quality opponent. So that's why I steered away from them. But you can't disagree with the numbers they put up. Like Kevin said, especially defensively, they've been a handful this year for teams.
Yeah, they're averaging 2.5 points on defense over the course of 8 games. So they're the number 1, and Granny Center's the number 2 defense, and we're the number 3. So that was basically why I chose them to be in there, is because of the defense.
Yeah, and regardless of quality opponents, when you're only giving up that many points, you're doing something right, regardless of who you're playing. So, yep. A little more historical stuff here, and then we're going to move on. We just set a school record, essentially. This is our longest consecutive playoff streak. We've now made the playoffs 8 straight seasons. Our previous record was 7 from 1990 to 1997, and that included a state championship and a runner-up. Coach Bob Sanger sits in 5th place all-time in wins in state history with 358. He's 3rd all-time in seasons coached with one team with 52. And he's 4th in playoff appearances with 30. And just for fun, Kevin Sanger is the only player inducted to the High School Football Hall of Fame. Just last year, he got inducted. I want to talk real quick. Mary Jo's Hobo House and Catering, and Britt's been a huge Wes Hancock supporter for 28 years now. Travel Iowa has voted the Hobo House as having one of the 10 best burgers in Iowa. Visit Mary Jo's Hobo House for lunch and breakfast every day at 72 Main Avenue South. Call them at 843-3840 for takeout. That's Mary Jo's Hobo House, Linda and Mary Jo Hughes, and they also cater. And then Michael and Brianne Ewing. Michael's kind of been my staple of sponsors since I started this. They have locations in Britt, Kanawha, Clarion, Belmont, and Dow's. Mike's a 1998 graduate of Wes Hancock, and they've been privileged to care for the communities of Britt and Kanawha since 1977. You can find them online at ewingfh.com or on Facebook. Give them a call at 843-3839, 762-3211. That's Ewing Funeral Home and Monument Company. We already did our dome predictions for Class A. Let's move on to Class 8-man, 1A, and 2A. I'll put all the brackets on the screen. I don't think we need to go through them one by one wins, but let's do our top 4 who we think is going to come through. Let's start with 8-player. I'll put that on the screen. Kevin, who do you have for 8-player?
All right.
Dome.
Yeah, I picked Turkey Valley. They've run the table so far this season, and I know they got a pretty good team. If I remember correctly, they're one of the teams that have beaten Don Bosco this year. And then Caminita, I picked them to get to the Final Four along with Easton Valley. And then I think the champion, I'm just come right out, and Montezuma is going to be the team to beat, I think. Eddie Burgess is the real deal, and the man can just put touchdown after touchdown on the board. We saw that last year in the playoffs, and I think Montezuma is got to be the favorite in the 8-man field.
Yep. What about you, Jay?
I preface this by saying I really don't know much about 8-man football. So I'm going to go with my Final Four, St. Mary's Remsen. I'm going to go with Baxter just based on their one loss only beating Montezuma. My third one, I'm going to go with the Dons of Don Bosco for 2 reasons. They're there every year. The other reason, the 10 old boys that are at Don Bosco, terrific wrestlers, those are my wife's cousin's kids. So I always root for the 10 old boys, the twins there in their senior year. So got a little special spot in my heart for Don Bosco while they're there. And then my champion that I'm going to pick, the fighting Eddie Burgesses of Montezuma. That guy's a dude. We seen him a couple years ago for basketball. We seen him at a summer camp, and he's a legit 6'4", 230. He moves super well. I just remember seeing him on the basketball court, and he was playing point guard for a little bit, just finding guys. Obviously, Montezuma won the state title last year thanks to Eddie and Trey Shear in basketball, but he's a terrific athlete. I think I'm going to make a prediction and say that Eddie Burgess is going to be one of those 8-man football players that turns into a Division I walk-on guy that's playing at an Iowa State or UNI. He's a really good athlete, and he's going to be a really good get for some program because he'll go and he will compete, and he'll probably be a linebacker or defensive end. Who knows? But he's a fun one to watch.
Yep, he'll be a Nate Meyer type guy. I'm going with St. Mary's Remsen, Easton Valley. I'm going to pick Waco. I don't know why. I just kind of felt like maybe Waco. I felt bad not picking Don Bosco because they're always there, but they've had some some losses this year that they don't normally have. So I'm like, maybe it's not their year. And then I'm going with you guys. Montezuma, I think, is the clear-cut favorite to win 8-man. So again, I don't follow it real close. I keep up on Buffalo Center, but that's about it when it comes to that. Let me find my 1A bracket here. How about 1A? Get my screen shared. Who do you guys have for 1A? Kevin, you want to go first?
Well, this field is loaded, and
Yeah.
there is a bunch of different teams in here that could make a statement, or you could make a good argument that they could win the championship. And there's lots of tradition in there. You got West Sioux and Dyke, Regina's in there, Sigourney, Kyoto. We know about them. We faced them a few times in the playoffs. But I picked my final four to be Dyke, New Hartford. I think they're the real deal. We kind of saw that when they took down Grundy Center in like week number 2. And then what I was impressed when they took down Denver here a couple of weeks ago, because Denver was kind of on a roll, and it was a close game at halftime, and Dyke come out of the locker room and took care of business and pretty much trounced them. So I'm going to go with Dyke in the final four along with Regina. It's hard to vote against the tradition of Iowa City Regina. And then Van Meter, they've just been putting up some ugly scores against people. And then Underwood, of course, I think is the real deal also. So that final four, and then there are other teams out there that could do it. And but that class, particularly those number ones, are all capable of winning the championship, I think.
Yeah, I'm going with Regina, Underwood, Van Meter, and Sigourney Kyoto. I don't know if I'm still just Sigourney.
No I-35?
What's that?
No I-35?
I'm trying to be realistic.
Oh, okay.
We have great coaches at I-35, good people, and a lot of those kids I had in class. But if we beat Woodward, they're probably looking at Van Meter the next round. So yeah.
You might have a pink slip when you get to work Monday, Dan.
I
was already trying to recruit him. I was trying to recruit Dan and his wife to get back up to Britt and get some teaching jobs. So I was putting a good word in to Dan Peterson last night. Happy wife, happy life, Dan.
Yep. That's going to be the balance we have to have there. So, yeah. Who do you have?
This, like you guys alluded to, this loaded class will be fun to see how it shakes out. I think 6 or 7 undefeated teams, and then you got some one-loss teams that are really good too. I'm going to go Van Meter. They've been really good. Again, another great defensive team. Van Meter, Dyke, New Hartford, obviously an impressive win over Grundy Center. And then same with Kevin. When they played Denver, we were watching that or keeping up with that when we were doing the live stream. And then in the second half, when they just kind of blew the doors off of them in the second half. So Dyke, New Hartford is my other Final Four team. My third is Underwood. And then my fourth that I'm going to pick, I'm going to go with West Sioux. I just think what they do offensively, they've got a really good program, especially on the offensive side of football. They've got another, I don't know how many lineouts they've got there, but they've got another one that's doing damage, running the ball and catching the ball. So I'm going to go with West Sioux. But yeah, there's a legit probably 9 to 10 teams that I would not be surprised. I mean, I'm leaving off Regina, Sigourney, Kyoto, great program, undefeated. South Central Calhoun's really good. Obviously, Denver's a really good team if they get the right matchup. Terrific, loaded class. The other team that I'll say to watch out for, just because of their schedule, they're a number 2, and they're 3-5, is Western Christian.
Yeah.
They've been tested, and they're a team I would not want to play.
Yeah.
I've seen them before.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I still think Van Meter's the class of that class, but man, they're gonna have to come into some challenges. But yeah, I don't know. I'm probably still bitter from Dyke New Hartford 2002 quarterfinals, and a couple of my buddies are actually from there. But they it seems like they've underachieved a little bit in the playoffs in the last couple of years. So I wasn't real confident picking them to go farther than maybe they probably will. 2A, not one single undefeated team in 2A. If you look at the top, Garner's right up top there. I'll go first for 2A. I have Waukon. They're actually going to be my champion. Greene County, West Lyon, and then I'm going to go with OA-BCIG. I know they're not as loaded as they've been in the past. They lost, Cooper. He's a Hawkeye now, but I just think kind of like with us, their experience might come into play a little bit. And they've had a pretty tough schedule, so I picked them to go to the Dome with Waukon winning it all. How about you, Kev?
I'm going to go with West Lyon. I'm going to keep it. I'm going to love Lyon County because I'm going to go with Central Lyon and West Lyon to get down to the Dome. If they don't run into each other prior, and they may very well. I'm going to go with OABCIG, but here's where I'm going to go off the chart a little bit and pick a sleeper. And I think Greene County gets in there as a semifinalist.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't know a great deal about them. Kind of watching them from the fringe, but just got a hunch. Just playing a hunch that I think Greene County could make a run into the Final Four.
Yep. And like Garner's in there. I don't think they're gonna get out of the first round. Osage is in there, but they had a tough draw with Spirit Lake. And then Iowa Falls Alden. I'm kind of happy to see them have some success this year. Don Anderson's the head coach there, former Buffalo Center guy. I don't see them getting more than a round or two in it, but I'm glad they're back in there. How about you, Jay?
I'm going to go with West Lyon as the champs. Congrats to Coach Camrad and getting the Cardinals into the playoffs, but they got one heck of a draw having to go over to West Lyon in that first round. I'm going to go with them as the champs. I'm with Kevin. Central Lyon, George Little Rock. I got them in the Final Four. Battle-tested team. Very, very good team. Probably disappointed with their record. A lot of preseason people had them top 3, but their schedule was just brutal, especially the first 6 weeks of the season. And that game, Estherville Lincoln Central, they've been a really nice story too. So that game, I think the winner of that game, I do think Central Lyon comes away with the win, but I think the winner of that Estherville Lincoln Central game and CL, GLR, the winner of that game makes their way to the Dome depending on how those quads shake out. But I think that's a really good team. My other Final Four team, I'm going to go with the Aaron Graves led Southeast Valley. Aaron Graves, 4-star defensive end committed to the University of Iowa when he was after his freshman year.
Yep.
Really good prospect. So I'm going to go with Southeast Valley. And then my Final Four team, I'm going to go with Waukon. Great tradition, great program. I think they get it done. And I think just based on where they're at geographically, I think they're going to have not an easy run to the Dome, but their path may have less landmines in it than someone like West Lyon or Central Lyon, George Little Rock to get there. So Waukon's my fourth one, but I'm gonna stick with West Lyon to win it all.
Yep, I think that would be Rosaboom's 6th state championship. That guy is pretty darn amazing. If you can get to that point. Couple more historical things here, quick, just for fun. We started our postseason run that we see today in 1984. Like we said, Coach won his first title in '73, but then in '84 is when we consistently started making the playoffs. In the '80s, we went to the quarters. We were runner-ups, made the semis. I missed the playoffs in '89. We were 10-5 that decade. And then throughout the '70s and '80s is when the state started expanding the playoffs. We went from 4 to 8 teams and eventually to 16. In 1975, it went from 4 to 8. In 1981, they added Class A, and that's where we've been for the last decade or so, still at 8 teams. And then in '84, it was expanded to 16, except for Class 4A, they stayed at 8. And the 90s is where we kind of really hit our stride, I'd say, even though we had a few championship appearances. We only missed the playoffs in 1998 in that entire decade. From 1990 to 99, we were state qualifiers, quarterfinals, runner-ups, quarterfinals, semis, state champs, semifinals, and then qualifiers to end the decade. 13-8 playoff record. Like I said earlier, if you want to check out that 96 state championship team podcast, it was a lot of fun. Those guys remembered a lot of random information from that season. And then real quick here, I'm going to get to First State Bank, and then we're going to start wrapping this thing up. First State Bank is one of my sponsors. They take pride in their community-based values and want to be your bank. They take pride in serving the Eagle Nation communities. They can specialize their banking products to meet the needs of your busy life with free internet banking, mobile banking app with mobile deposit. Try their bill pay services. They back their Eagles 24/7, just like their service to you. First State, whether it's personal, business, real estate, or ag loans, they have products to serve you best. You can go and bank 24/7 with their convenient online banking, account inquiry, make transfers, bill pay, all free services. Check out First State Bank in Britt. Try the mobile app. While you're supporting the Eagles, you can check your accounts, make transfers, and pay your pesky bills. All right. What do you guys think for 3A, 4A, 5A real quick here? I'm not a huge big school person by any means, and they still have a week of the regular season. But if you had to pick, let's just do champions. Let's just do your 3A, 4A, and 5A champions to save a few minutes here. What do you guys think? Kevin?
Actually, I'm going to defer to Jay. Let's have Jay go first here because I got to find the paperback that I wrote this stuff down. So if you want to talk, go ahead and do that, Jay.
One thing I'll say
Come
is the state of Iowa this year is low. I'm kind of a recruiting nerd. I love to follow that stuff. And I'll give a plug to the Des Moines Register. They do a great job with their recruiting profiles. State of Iowa is loaded with D1 football players this year. Obviously, I will start out in 5A. My champion is Southeast Polk. 5A has kind of been crazy this year and teams beating up on each other, but Southeast Polk, they've got the best player in the state in Xavier Wankpa, who's one of the top 5 players in the nation. Every team wants him. Ohio State's football coach was at their game last night, Ryan Day. Hopefully he becomes a Hawkeye, but he's got offers from everywhere. I think his final 3 are Iowa, Ohio State, Notre Dame. And then they've got one of the best offensive linemen in the state in Caden Proctor, who's got offers again from everywhere. Really good quarterback. But just a plug, keep an eye. There's a lot of really good football players in the state of Iowa that are going to be making some noise at the next level and then beyond. So I'll go Southeast Polk for 5A. For 4A, I'm a toss-up between Xavier and Lewis Central. So just to be different, I'm going to go Lewis Central to win 4A. 3A, obviously, Harlan does what it does, and talk about a program. They are the program in the state of Iowa. But I'm going to go with the Solon Spartans to win Class 3A. Again, I'm making it's a personal because my nephews go to Solon. So I'm going to go with the Solon Spartans to win 3A. But 3A is loaded. You got Harlan, Boyden, Hull, Solon. Humble, terrific win last night over Nevada, undefeated. So look out for the Wildcats. But I'm going to go with Solon.
Yep. Humboldt's head football coach is from Buffalo Center, Derek Ellman. He's done a nice job building that program. He was at Iowa Falls for a number of years. I'll go just in case Kevin hasn't found his papers yet. But I picked Harlan for 3A. They're loaded this year. I mean, they're always good, but this is the year where they're back to that dominating self that they've been for decades. But I'd like to see Humboldt get to the Dome just for that Buffalo Center connection. I also had Solon in my top 4. 4A, I wish I could pick Indianola. They're having a nice season. They're 7-1, only lost to Norwalk. I don't think they're deep enough to win it all, but I'd like to see them get to the Dome. But I picked North Scott to win 4A. Again, I don't follow it real well, but just based on scores and records, I'm going with North Scott. And then 5A, I'm going with Southeast Polk. We saw Dowling's streak end last year, which was kind of nice, and they've been kind of up and down this year. I think they ended up beating Valley last night. They came back. But then I just think Southeast Polk is too talented, and kind of nice to see one of those metro teams that aren't like a real metro team do well. They're real close to where I live. So, yeah.
You said Dowling ended up coming back and beating Valley. I never saw that.
I'm pretty sure I saw that, but I could be wrong too.
Speaking of, we're talking about recruiting, and we talked about last night, and I cannot remember his name. Indianola, they've got a running back that's a D1 running back, really good player. And for some reason, I can't remember his name.
Me neither.
But he's got offers from a lot of different places. So, yeah, just a ton of talent. Obviously, in the lower classes, a ton of talent too. But in 5A and 4A, there is a load of college football players and potential NFL players.
Yep, and we've been keeping a lot of those players in state too recently. There was a number of years where a lot of those guys would go to Bama or Miami or other places. So I'm glad to see the Hawks and the Cyclones keeping them in state.
Yep.
How about you, Kev?
I did find my notes. I'm gonna go in 5A with someone that you guys didn't even mention. I'm gonna go with Cedar Rapids Kennedy. They've had a good season this year, and if they can get it put together and make a run, maybe they can knock off Southeast Polk in the championship game. And then in 4A, I can go either way with you guys. Xavier, North Scott. North Scott sticks out to me because I love defense, and North Scott's defense has been pretty good all year long. They're ranked #1 in defense in class 4A. Hard to go against Xavier's tradition of making long runs. And then Harlan and Boyden Hall, what a championship game that would make, to have those two face off in the championship. So I think that would, and I do think that would probably be the 3A championship, is Harlan and Boyden Hall.
Yep, that'd be fun. And I'm like, you know me, I'm a high school football nerd. I kind of like seeing those top teams continue to do well, like Harlan. They've been in 21 state championship games. Dowling's been in 17. Emmitsburg, they're down currently, but they've been in 16. Britt's been in 7. It's just kind of fun to see those teams just have that continued success year after year. And I get people asking me about Britt. They're like, is a small school that good all the time? Like, you think you'd have some ups and downs. We've had a few not great seasons, but overall, 35 plus years of just, we're disappointed if we lose in the quarterfinals. That's kind of a rarity. But real quick here, I'm going to get to the Britt Vet Clinic, and then we're going to wrap things up here shortly. The Britt Vet Clinic is long-term sponsoring this podcast. They're located in downtown Britt. They're there for all your small animal vet needs and swine vet services. Call them at 843-3416 or email the Britt Vet Clinic at brittvetclinic@gmail.com. Real quick here for fun, I've done the 80s and 90s. Let's wrap up our other playoff appearances. In the 2000s, we were in the playoffs 6 times, quarterfinals, quarters, qualifiers, quarters, semis, and semis. Like I said, most people are jealous of that, and we were kind of disappointed, like, oh, that decade wasn't the greatest. But for you, Kevin, especially, that decade meant a lot to you, because Brady and his group went on a pretty good tear, made the quarters and the semis twice, and they were one of those teams that they should have and could have been in at least one championship game, but they were a really fun team to watch. We're 7-6 in that decade, and then in the 2010 decade, and we'll lump in 2020 just for time, we went 16-9 in the playoffs, quarterfinals, runner-up, second round, qualifiers, quarters, semis, state champions, quarterfinals, and hopefully we add a nice big trophy in 2021. And all those trophies in our case are, credit to Coach Bob Sanger, the late great Coach Bob Sanger. I just wanted to take a minute and talk about him a little bit. He took over in 1968, won 3 state titles, 73, 96, 2019, and then 84 until present day. I mean, like we've said, they just went on a tear, and he wrapped up his career winning a state championship in 2019, passed away February 5th of 2020, and then we all know Mark took over as co-coach with him in 2019 and then took over his head last year. What do you guys have to say about Coach Sanger? And we talked last night a little bit about the assistant coaches too, that we should give a shout out to that staff of Mark's and formerly Coach Bob Sanger's staff. What do you guys want to say about the staff?
I think that's one of the keys to Coach Sanger's legacy and his success, and now Mark's success is, 95% of that staff through the years, they played for Coach Bob, so they know the system. They know just the consistency. So the kids are getting that constant message, the same message across, whether it's your D-line coach, offensive coordinator. And one thing I'll say about like this year's staff with Mark, he really, he really trusts his offensive guys, and Kevin Eisenman obviously pulling the strings for the offense and calling plays. Ryan Johnson has a lot to do with that, and Brady Wilson being on the staff. But they just do a terrific job of that continuity and continuing to run that same program. You see some new wrinkles, and we've seen it this year with Mitchell running that quarterback power and going out of the shotgun some more with him. But yeah, Bob was terrific. I got to know Bob through my insurance agency. He would come in, and I'd always want to talk football, and he'd always want to talk farming when he'd come in, and we'd just sit down and have a cup of coffee. And it was, probably once a month, Bob would come in, and we just BS a little bit and talk about the community. And he was always, the one thing I always appreciated about Bob is he never wanted to talk about himself. He was always asking, like, hey, how's Bonnie doing? How's Claire doing? Talking about the business. He'd be talking about the basketball team and always kind of deflecting a little bit. And where I'm, obviously I didn't graduate from West Hancock and get to play underneath Bob. So I've always wanted to pick his brain a little bit about his successes in that, but he never wanted to talk about it himself. And then Kevin, I'm sure you remember this, but one of the greatest memories that we had was Bob's birthday party a couple years ago in 2019. Was it homecoming? I can't remember. It was after a home game, and we had a birthday. Yeah, we had a birthday party for Bob at Renee and Jim Deemer's house, and a lot of the 73 players came back, and it was just kind of a terrific get together and just celebration there. And that's one of the best memories. I'm very thankful that we got invited to come in and kind of just be a fly on the wall at that party.
Yep.
Yeah, Bob and I shared a birthday, a common birthday. We were 19 years apart in age, if my memory serves me correct. And that was a great experience to get to listen to the stories. And if you sat down with Bob and started talking, you could talk for hours and hours, and it seemed like it was just minutes that you were there. And when I first met Coach, being from Grundy Center, I thought, oh boy, this guy's not going to like me very well. But it quickly learned that his beef wasn't with Grundy Center. It was with the fact that, Grundy Center played in the Dome that one year about 3 or 4 times before they faced off against West Hancock. I guess it was Britt back then. But when I was the head basketball coach, and this is one of my favorite things about Bob, is he was more than willing to help another coach out somehow or whatever way he could. And we would sit around after basketball practice, and I was relatively new coach when I became the head coach. Hadn't been coaching all that long. And Bob and I talked more than just football. We would talk basketball, we talked team and talk team building. And we sat for hours after practice on occasion, just talking about building a team. And one of the things that always stuck with me was that when he would talk about being competitive regardless of how good you were. Go out and try to compete. That was in his mind, that was half the battle of building a team, was just going out and competing. And if you could get kids to compete, you were going to be successful. And I think, I've carried that with me, is just trying to get, even outside of life, be competitive. If you don't dare to compete in life and in contest, you're going to lose. And nobody wants to do that. So I thought Bob, he was full of knowledge, and he was just a great guy, more so even off the football field. What he's done for the communities of Kanawha, Britt, West Hancock, that nothing more needs to be said really about that. So it's well documented. And then being able to carry on that tradition here that he started way back in 1969, and what, like you said, took off in the mid 80s. That's just phenomenal. And I'm just tickled to be a part of it, even in a small way.
Yeah, I would echo that. That's one thing and we talked about last night at the end of our broadcast. We are very fortunate. Obviously, Kevin and I, not being graduates of Britt or West Hancock, kind of outsiders coming back, but we're tickled and just lucky and fortunate to be a part of this thing. There's a lot of radio guys that have called football games for a long time, and they don't get to see the product that we get to see. It makes it really easy to do what we do, and it makes it really fun because we know we have kids that compete. And that's the biggest thing. Kevin hit it on the head, is West Hancock is full of kids, boys, girls, teachers, and parents that love competition. If you compete and give it your best, success is going to quickly follow a program. If you got kids that are just competing at their best, so even if you're not the most talented, success is going to follow that program. And Bob's really the one that instilled that mantra and that competitiveness, not just with the football program, but within our athletic department. We've got communities in a district that love competition.
Yeah, I'd say him and Al De Leon especially were kind of the two architects, because there was some success even before Coach got there. But man, everything clicked all these decades later still. And like you guys said, you didn't get to play for him. I had the privilege of playing for Coach, and I'm not going to get long-winded here because I've talked about this on many other podcast episodes, but just the aura that guy carried. I mean, the respect he had from everybody. I didn't want to let the guy down. Every time we lost a game, which didn't happen often, but like my senior year, we didn't make the playoffs, and we were, touted to be the next state champions because we dropped down to Class A. And I just remembered the disappointment I felt. Like, what's he going to think about us losing this game? And that to me speaks numbers about the type of guy he was. He obviously wasn't disappointed in us. He was upset that we lost and whatnot, but it was more, that's how I felt. because I had that much respect for him, and I had that much respect for the football program and everything that goes with Britt and West Hancock. So
One of my favorite lines that we would get from Bob was after we had lost a tough game, and normally these games were games that ended in the dome, and quite often we heard him say, those kids deserve to win.
Yeah.
And they didn't, obviously, but those kids deserved to win, and they deserved to win because they were working hard and they were competing. And that's one of the things that's always stuck with me is, our kids, when they work hard, they deserve to win. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes that you're not the best team on the field, but always, if you're working hard and you earn the win, and you'll learn to win, and you deserve to win.
Yeah, and the stat I have is every time we lost a playoff game, what that team that beat us ended up doing, 15 or 16 times they went on to win the state championship, 5 or 6 times they lost in the state championship, and then almost every other time ended up in like the semifinals. We only lost to a team who ended up losing their next game like twice in all of our playoff losses. So there's a lot of deserving to win there. There's, if a couple breaks go the other way, we would have been even farther along. Real quick, favorite playoff memory in West Hancock history that you can recall?
Ooh, Kevin, I'm gonna let you go first. This one.
Well, I'm going to go with 2 of them if I can. The first one is going to be in 1993. We played Lorenz Marathon on our field, and they had a really good quarterback. I can't remember his name. Was it Durst? The name sticks in my head. But anyway, they had us down, and last play of the game we scored. I think Lamfers was the quarterback, if I'm not mistaken, and he threw a pass out there, and he never saw the catch because he was laying on his back. He was hit as he threw the ball, and we won the game on the last play of the game, and went on to go to the Dome. And that was one of my favorite games. And then the second one would be in 1996 when we won the state championship. I had teased Ben Bergman all season long. We'd meet in church on Sunday morning, and I would tease him that, you're going to kick the winning field goal in the state championship game. And I started telling him that about midway through the season. And then lo and behold, he does it. And that Sunday after the state championship game, he walked into church, and I looked at him, and he just had a big smile on his face. And I said, well, I told you it was going to happen. That was pretty cool. Those 2 things stick out for me. And then, of course, the ones where Brady was playing in 2006 and 2007, we didn't get what we wanted, but that with the championship games, that semifinal game against IKM, that was a great game. 2 teams just, that really, in my mind, and you'll be hard pressed to convince me otherwise, is that was the state championship game, because IKM went on to roll Wapsie Valley pretty good in the final, and then of course the next year we got beat by Lawton Bronson, and in a very close, heartbreaking game. So those are my favorite memories of the playoffs.
Mine would be the 3 games I got to be a part of. Just the preparation leading up to the game itself, I thought was more fun than the games itself. I don't remember a whole lot about the games besides that Eldora kid running me over a few times when they were in state. But just like, the games got done on Friday night, the pairings came out Saturday morning or Friday night late, and then you had till Wednesday. I mean, so it was like we practice on Saturday, we practice on Sunday, we practice in the gym with sweats on for the Dome. I just remember the kind of the lead up to those games and the pep rallies and stuff. We didn't do as well as we would have liked to. I think my junior year we got as far as we could have. Our sophomore year we should have been in the state championship game as well. But just the kind of the atmosphere around the playoffs was a lot of fun. And then the 96 title game, I was 10, so those guys were my idols. That was just a lot of fun to watch, and that was kind of my first memories of really Britt West Hancock football. So how about you, Mr. Hiscocks?
I'll go with the easy and obvious choice. I would say 2019, end of the game, they get the trophy and run over to Coach Sanger and family. We're up in the suite in the behind one of the end zones there, and just showing him the trophy, and just a terrific moment. I mean, it's sad to say, but no one ever knows what their expiration date is, right? And if you could script how you go out, like as far as great moments, what a great moment for Coach Sanger and family in that last year, and just a terrific team. And that was just a fun team to watch. I mean, they were number one with a bullet, the clear-cut favorite from the preseason, and there was no questions left behind that whole entire season. Tate Hagen and company, they were a terrific team, tons of weapons, and really an entertaining team to watch. I mean, we spoke about it last night, a ton of return touchdowns, defensive touchdowns, had home run hitters all over the place, had guys on the offensive line that were big and nasty. But my favorite memory, obviously I don't have the length of experience that you guys do, but that was, I don't know if there's anything that'll ever top that particular moment of being crowned a champion. And then with Bob battling his illness, the players, you knew they wanted to get that trophy, and they wanted to get that over to Bob right away. And what a great moment that was.
Yep. I talked about that with Ann last night doing the podcast with her. It was just, just amazing what those kids dealt with everything that was going on. And they had a bullseye on their back, and with coach and everything too. It was just a neat time. I wish I could have been there, but I watched it at school on my screen, and a lot of my I-35 students really got into West Hancock football that year as well. And they'd come back to school Monday morning and tell me about the game, because some of them were actually watching the live stream from like New Virginia, Iowa. They got into West Hancock football. So, all right, we're going to wrap it up. First round of the playoffs is this Friday, the 22nd. It's in Britt against Alta Aurelia at 7 o'clock. I believe it's like $8 to get into the playoff games. Thanks again to my sponsors, Mary Jo's Hobo House and Catering, Jan Rosga and her book Raw Survival, Ewing Funeral Home and Monument Company, Mr. Hiscocks here, White Barn Picket Fence, Deemer Realty, Britt Vet Clinic, First State Bank. November 8th, I'm doing my next one with Brent and John Hagen. And then I have a whole list of them through next August that I have booked out already. I'm up through like episode 42 I have booked out. Just thanks to you guys as always. You guys have been, you guys are one of the highlights of my fall. We start school, it's always a crazy time of year. And one thing I look forward to every week is West Hancock football games on Friday nights. And the three of us message each other a lot and have a good time talking football. It's a highlight of mine. So thank you guys for all you do. And anything else you want to throw out there real quick before we wrap it up? Say go Eagles.
Yeah, I want to say thank you to you for giving us all the statistics and doing what you do, because you make our job a little easier. And also, I know it's a labor of love for you, putting together the stats every week and doing that kind of stuff. And it's great. I'm glad you're doing it. And, God bless you, man. I know you put a lot of work into it, and I just really appreciate it.
Like I was telling someone last night at the game, I'm a boring guy. I go to work, we go to church on Sunday, we hang out at home, we put the kids to bed, my wife goes and reads. That's what I like to do. What else do I have to do? But I wouldn't want to have anything. It's just what I enjoy. So,
Dan, I would echo Kevin. I don't want your head to get too big, but the reason West Hancock is a really special place, there's a number of reasons. There's a number of reasons why West Hancock is special. And what you're doing with this podcast and kind of bringing the past together, people are talking about it. I know you're not in the community, but I was just at a Booster Club meeting and talking with Marley and Leerar, and we were talking about how neat it is to hear the different voices from the past, guys that are maybe moved away, things like that. But what you're doing, this is what makes West Hancock a really special place. Even people that move away, they want to continue to support and know what's going on in their community. And I've always said one of the main reasons why West Hancock is so good and so competitive across all things is you have all these guys that set records that you talk about in your book and things like that. But then they have kids that come to West Hancock and they root like heck for the next generation to surpass what they did. They have no problem saying, oh, you broke my record, or, oh, we're not the best team anymore. They're all about seeing that continued success and those guys to have even more success that they did. And it's really just a special place. And it's people like you, Dan, that make it that way and keep that community together, even for people that are miles and miles apart. So thank you for what you're doing, especially this podcast thing. It's really neat to catch up with the history and just see where people are now and celebrate what we've accomplished.
Yep, we got to tell our stories while we can, that's for sure. So thanks, guys. All right, go Eagles.
Go Eagles.